Hi there. Welcome to another episode of the Youth Mental Health Drive on To See Media. I am Wisdom, your host, and today we are delving into one key topic which has come up in our conversation so far. We've had perspectives from a licensed professional counselor, Mrs. Dadibo, and we've also taken some perspective from a lecturer at the University of Ghana, Dr. John Sedofia. Today, what we want to do is to get deep into the topic of time management among students, and this is something that we want to discuss in some few minutes, but we'll go into very practical strategies that can help every student, every young student, and by extension, every young individual or person who wants to have a sound and effective life. Now, the topic, as I mentioned, is effective time management for students. Effective time management for students. That's our topic of focus for today. And I'll be sharing with us some key thoughts on the topic. I am Wisdom, once again, the Vice Principal for To See Institute, and I'm a trained clinical psychologist and educationist. Now, when we talk about time management, one of the key words in there is time. And when you look on the screen, you see the image of a clock. And the clock, by our everyday activities, you look at your watch, whether you are looking at the time on a clock, a wall clock, or a wristwatch, or on your phone, the time helps us to know how we are moving across the day. So if the time says 7 p.m., then you know, for instance, that you have to watch the news on a particular TV channel. So when it's 7 p.m., I know that it's time for the news on TV3. And so the time that we are able to move by helps us to go through our day. And when we talk about management, we are looking at how you are able to, as it were, control certain resources or certain activities that you have to deal with. And so the two key words, time and management, are very important, for us. And so there's this quote from Abraham Lincoln, and he says that, "Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, and I'll spend the first 4 sharpening the axe." And so this quote helps us to see how in having time, we need to learn how to use it. And so he says that if you are to give him 6 hours to bring down a tree, he will have the first 4 hours dedicated to making sure that his axe, the cutlass, whatever tool that will be used to bring down the tree, is well sharpened. And so he is apportioning time to specific parts of that activity of bringing down the tree, so that the amount of time that will be spent doing the actual work of cutting down the tree will be lesser. And so in understanding time management, one of the first things that we want to know is that time management is dependent on you, the individual, and the activities or the tasks that are present at a particular time. And so if you learn what to do at what time and how to apportion the needed time to that activity, then you would have been managing your time, so to speak. Now, the Cambridge English Dictionary defines time management as the practice of using the time that you have available in a useful and effective way, especially in your work. And so when we say time management or managing your time, what it means is that you are using the time that you have, whether it's 10 hours, whether it's 6 hours, whether it's 2 hours, you are using the time that you have available to you in a way that would make you productive, make you effective, ensure that whatever output you make out of the period that you have been given is something that is worthwhile. And so we all have, as they say, 24 hours. We all have 24 hours of the day, the time for night and the time for day. How we use this time available to us is very important. And so the question is whether or not you are using the time available for you in school in a useful and effective way. If you are a young person who is working in whichever space, the question is, am I using the time available during the day in a useful or effective way? And that is time management, the practice. And so it's not a one day wonder. It's a constant thing. It's something that becomes a habit. You are in the practice of using your time in a very effective and useful way, and that would mean that you are a good time manager. Now, we can also say that time management is a process. So the process of planning and exercising control over the time spent on specific activities with the aim of increasing your efficiency and productivity. So the time that I have available to record this video, I needed to plan what kind of content will be delivered, how it will be delivered, and within what time it should be delivered. And all that planning is part of the time management, itself. And so when you are able to sit down and plan out how an activity should go, your lectures, your learning, whether it's a group study or personal study, your watching of a movie, football, if you are able to spend time, go through a process of planning how the activity should go in terms of the time allocated, you being able to control how much time is spent on that activity. And your primary goal is that you want to be effective, you want to be efficient as a student, you want to be productive as a student or as an individual. That is time management. So time management is a conscious effort, it's a conscious process that you go through to ensure that, number one, you are able to plan what specific activity should be done within a particular period of time. And you are also able to control how that activity happens within the time that has been designated. And so if I say what Abraham Lincoln, we quoted from him earlier, if I say that I'm going to spend 4 hours of the time given to me on sharpening my axe, going through preparation, learning, to understand the concepts, going for group studies, tutorials and all that. If I say 4 hours will be spent on that, then I have to be in control of that time that is spent so that I'll be able to use the next 2 hours available to do the cutting down. So at the end of the day, I'm efficient, I'm productive, and I am successful. Now, why is this important? It's important for you as a student, as a young person, to plan, to have a good time management, routine, because number one, it will help reduce your levels of anxiety and stress. A lot of times when we have deadlines that we seem to be racing against time with, it increases our anxiety and our stress levels. People become stressed out when exam is coming, a test is announced, and they are not prepared. So if you are able to have a good time management routine, it helps to reduce the anxiety and stress that comes with being a student at any level, especially at the higher levels where demand or the expectations are higher. Number two, it helps with retention One of the good things about learning effectively is that when you learn how to manage the amount of content you learn in a particular period, so maybe later on we'll talk about some learning techniques. If you are able to chunk your learn in a spaced manner, and you are able to control how much time you spend on your learning and your extra curricular activities, it helps to ensure that you are very effective in your academic work and any other tax related work. It helps with retention. When you spend time reading, you spend time revising your notes, it sticks better because you've been able to learn how to apportion time and control your activities per time. Number 3, it helps to avoid procrastination. If you don't plan your day well, if you don't plan your week well, and as we will go into some practical, approach, if you don't plan your time for specific activities, what will happen is that you will keep procrastinating. And so what you said you will do tomorrow, tomorrow will come, and then you will say you do it the next day. And before you realize, you will begin to feel guilty for certain steps that you couldn't take or certain activities that you couldn't undertake. And in all of these, when you are able to have a good time management routine, it helps you to have enough rest. So you don't go about the day doing all kinds of things, and at the end of the day you look back and you are wondering what made you tired. No, you are able to plan how things should go, apportion time, and you are able to also apportion time for sleeping, for the night, knowing that I'll sleep at this time and wake up at this time, and you stick to it. It helps to ensure that in senior high school, at least for my school, Mauli School, we had a time for siesta. So after the day's classes, there's a 1 hour period for siesta. So if you are able to stick with that routine, it makes you a bit more refreshed for prep in the evening, and that is by itself improving your mental strength and clarity for the next day and for your evening prep and all the kinds of other academic engagement that you need a clear mind for. So these are some of the key reasons why you need to work on your time management. And there are 3 key elements of a good or effective time management routine. Number 1 is prioritization. So in time management, one of the things you need to do is to prioritize, and we'll look at a matrix shortly. Prioritize. So if there are 10 activities that need my attention for Monday, how do I rank them in order of merit? And so there's an order of merit. This one is very important, then the next, and I'm able to go through the ones that I can go through per the level of priority. The second key element is planning, and planning is you being intentional about what to do, how to do it, when to do it, and why you should do it. And so getting your what, your why, your when, and your how is very important, and that involves planning. And the third key element is discipline. The person who has not disciplined himself will not be able to carry out all the goals that you set for yourself. So if you are a student and you lack self-discipline, what will happen is that you will sleep and oversleep. You will spend time watching movies and football shows and all the kinds of things to watch, and when it's time for revision and all that, you will not be able to understand what to do and what not to do because you have a lot to cover. And so self-discipline is important for making time when it's time for rest, for making time when it's time for lectures, every other activity or religious activities. When you are disciplined, it allows you to be able to, number 1, prioritize, and number 2, plan, as well as execute what you need to execute. So these are 3 key elements that are necessary for effective time management: prioritization, planning, and discipline. And these are captured in a matrix called the Eisenhower matrix. And the Eisenhower matrix is a very good, tool that you can use as a student, as a young person, or even anybody at all can use to help in making your every day, every week effective. The Eisenhower matrix is attributed to one of the former presidents of the United States, the 34th president, Eisenhower. And he was very, particular and meticulous when it came to his tasks. And the Eisenhower matrix helps you to prioritize your tasks in a way that it will help you to do what is important and what is urgent. So it helps you to prioritize your tasks based on what is urgent and what is important. And so as you see in here, we have the urgent and not urgent, important, not important. So there are 4 quadrants on the matrix. The first quadrant is what is called the urgent and important quadrant. So the second, you have the important but not urgent quadrant. The third is the urgent but not important. And the fourth is not urgent and not important. So this is a breakdown of how you can, apply these quadrants. So you come up with your quadrants, 4 quadrants, and for quadrant 1, as we have mentioned, is the urgent and important quadrant. And in that quadrant, every activity, every task has to be done and done as soon as possible. So the type of task in quadrant 1, as you work out your day or your week, Monday, what are the critical tasks that need to be done immediately? They need immediate attention and they have serious consequences if you don't do them or if you delay them. So the first quadrant is the do it now quadrant. So as a student, I need to ask myself, Monday, what are the lectures that need to be attended? If I don't attend, there are serious consequences. What are the activities that I need to engage in that if I don't engage in and I delay them, there are serious consequences? So, for instance, if you have an exam tomorrow, a test tomorrow, today is whatever day it is. So, this recording is being done on a Wednesday. So, tomorrow is Thursday. If I have a test, if I have a quiz tomorrow, then I have to put that in my first quadrant. It is an urgent and important task. It has to be done now. So any other thing that I will have to do, I have to weigh it against studying for this exam that is tomorrow. And this particular thing is urgent and it is important. Number 2, completing an assignment that has a due date 11 p.m. today or any time today. The day is almost over. This is not the time for me to sit down and be watching a movie. It's not a priority. It's not urgent and important. That will go into a different quadrant. No matter how much interesting that movie is, it cannot replace this task that is urgent and important. So the first quadrant is the quadrant where you put activities, tasks that need your attention immediately, or if you don't do it in the shortest possible time, there are consequences that are serious. It will affect your goals and it will affect your immediate success. The second quadrant is the quadrant where you have activities that are important but they are not urgent. So tasks that contribute to your medium to long-term goals but don't need immediate action. So you don't have to do it now. That is it. And for those tasks in quadrant 2, you schedule it or you decide when to do it. So if I have a project work that I need to submit in the month of March, so next month, that is an important project, it's an important task, but it is not urgent as compared to the exam that is coming tomorrow or the projects that I need to submit to by the close of day to day. So in the quadrant 2, I move that project, doing my research for the project, studying for the project, putting things together to a day maybe after tomorrow or a day on Monday next week, because although it is important, it is not an urgent task. The consequences are not as dire as the quadrant 1, where if I don't study for the exam tomorrow, I will fail it. If I don't submit the assignment by close of day, I will fail it. So although the assignment may just be a quiz, a small test, compared to the project which carries more marks, the project work is due next month. And so although it is important, it is not urgent. So it goes into quadrant 2. Then the third quadrant is the quadrant where the task or activity is urgent. It has to be done now. However, it is not important. It does not give so much significant, contribution to your personal goals as a student or as an individual. So it requires immediate attention, but it doesn't contribute significantly to your progress as a student. So for instance, if a classmate calls you that, oh, I need you to explain this particular topic, I have a quiz coming up tomorrow. Although it is an urgent task or activity, because you are preparing for an exam tomorrow or you have a deadline in 1 hour to meet, that particular task is not an important task to you, although it is urgent to another person. So in that case, you put it in quadrant 3 because it is the delegate quadrant. You delegate whatever task that is urgent but not important as much as possible. So for instance, this colleague of yours or friend that called you to explain that task or that concept while you are in the reading room preparing for an exam tomorrow, what you do is you search for a site, a website, or a YouTube video on the topic and send it to your friend that listen to this one. It will help you. You have delegated that task of explaining to a website or another person who has explained it better. I don't know if you get it. So that is the delegate quadrant. A friend says, escort me to the bush canteen or the canteen to eat. You have other tasks that are urgent and important, or other tasks that you need to attend to. That particular escorting of a friend won't add any significant thing to you as a student. So you could tell the friend that, oh, let Kwame escort you, or you go and come another day, I would help you to the canteen, or I may even buy the food for you myself. So that is something that goes into the urgent but not important quadrant. Now the last quadrant is the not urgent and not important quadrant, and this is the quadrant where you put all the activities, all the engagements, all the tasks that are not prioritized for you. They are not a priority. So these are low priority tasks or activities that do not add any significant value to you, and they are also not urgent to do. So if you don't do them, they don't have any dire consequences. They will not affect your academic growth as a student or performance as a student. It will not cost you anything significant. There may be some consequences, but they are not consequences that as a student, as an individual, for whatever goals that or aspirations that you have, it won't really matter much. And so this is the quadrant that we delete those activities or tasks. So for instance, going through social media from Twitter, from Instagram to YouTube to Facebook to X, you are just scrolling through and laughing and liking and commenting and watching videos here and there, watching continuously. Some people wake up in the morning and the first thing is WhatsApp, and they are responding to every message available, and you spend excessive time on social media. That is an activity that is not urgent and it is not important. If I don't like somebody's post or comment on somebody's post, immediately they post it, it will not damage my reputation as a student. It won't do any harm to me. It's something I can always be able to do whenever I have some space or time available. And so these are low priority tasks that do not add any significant value to you relative to your personal goals and whatever aspirations that you have as a student. And so if I have a series of movies I need to watch, yes, watching movies is part of your way of getting refreshed, and these activities, listening to music and going out and all that, these are very important relaxation and entertainment activities. But is it relative to my lecture session, relative to my working on that research project, relative to my going for a church meeting or a religious meeting, relative to whatever other engagements that can help me improve as a student, as a person, as an individual? How do they compare? So on your scale of preference and ranking, these are activities that should be on the lowest end, and delete them, meaning that you take them off your schedules. If you have time for them along the line, you can do that. But if you are even planning them and integrating them into your day, into your week, they shouldn't take more time than what is in the urgent and important quadrant, or what is in the important but not urgent quadrant, or what is in the urgent but not important quadrant. So the first three quadrants should have more time allocated in terms of ranking as compared to the last quadrant. So quadrant 1 should have more urgency and attention. Quadrant 2 should get the needed attention, and then quadrant 3 follows as it were, and quadrant 4 is the least of your worries. So in summary, these are 5 key steps that you follow in adopting the Eisenhower matrix. Number 1, you need to list all your tasks for the day, or your weekly tasks. So for today, which lectures do I have? Which class sessions do I have? Which group studies do I have? Which assignments do I have to complete for the week? What are the projects? What are the religious meetings or activities? You need to list all of them down for the day or for the week. And number 2, you categorize them into the 4 quadrants. So which one is supposed to be done now because they have dire consequences if delayed? Let me push them to the quadrant 1. It is the important and it is the urgent tasks. Number 2, which one should go into the things that I'll schedule a time for? I can decide when to do them, because although they are important, they are not urgent. You push those ones into the quadrant 2. Then which ones are not important but they are urgent? Let me push them into the quadrant 3. And then which ones can I eliminate because they are time wasters? They are things that I can do without, so that I can focus on the more important and urgent things. And that is where we would want to end it today. If you want to have an effective routine as a student when it comes to time management, so that you reduce all the stress that comes with last minute learning and all the pressure, the anxiety that comes with studentship, these are things that you want to pay attention to. And I'm believing that you will adopt the Eisenhower matrix, and you will also be able to stick with the key elements for time management. You will prioritize, you will plan consciously, and you will discipline yourself to go by what you have set to do. Thank you so much for joining today's episode of YOMED. I hope you found it useful. Please subscribe to the channel, share the video to others, like and leave a comment on what you have learned from the episode so far. And if you have any ideas on what you want us to discuss, you can share with us and we'll be glad to deal with them. Thank you once again, and bye bye.